Welcome in to another episode of the Women's Basketball Now podcast here on the Hoop Central YouTube channel. This is Hamilton Neal, your host, joining you as always. We thank you, the viewer, for taking the time. Also, here on this particular episode today, we've got some very exciting stuff to talk about. This is our very first episode of Women's Basketball Now with a focus on the WNBA. Obviously, on this channel, we talk exclusively about women's college basketball, whether it comes to the transfer portal, whether it comes to recruiting, things like that, and talking about different teams going down the line. But we have not had as much WNBA content, but we are definitely going to get things started with this episode here, where we're not going to be focusing on games as much and what's going on with the season. We will get to that on future episodes. We'll go over like top 5 games of the week, standings, players, etc. But here we're going to talk about very big stuff going on in the W and conversations when it pertains to league expansion, roster expansion. This is something that going into the season really started to amplify as top draft picks from a number of teams were getting cut right after they were drafted, right after the little mini camps opened. They were getting cut, not even starting the season with the team that drafted them. Even veteran players have been getting cut because there's only 12 roster spots on each team, and most teams only carry 11 players due to the hard salary cap, because players are getting paid more now. Top players are getting more money, but that makes it harder to even carry one more player on a team. And that is called for league expansion, something that people for years have been talking about. This league needs more than 12 teams. The players and coaches have said, well, it's more of an issue about roster size. Maybe if you could get 15 players on a team, that would even help. And it definitely would. But Commissioner Cathy Englebert really feels like expanding the league, adding more teams, is more of the solution. Now, while you expand the league and you add more teams, you have to have your economic model down and in place. And that's something that she has definitely made a point. She talked about that they're transforming the economics of the league, and they want to bring in new owners, and they want to do that over a period of time in which their economic setup is stable. They need that economic stability to make this possible to add more teams. The league is doing a lot of data analysis. They're looking at about 100 cities across the U.S. 100 cities across the U.S. They're doing their homework right now on these cities, seeing which ones would be the best fit for WNBA franchises. The Bay Area is a location where a lot of people said they need a WNBA team. Former WNBA All-Star Elissa Cunane and her ownership group has received support from local politicians, and Oracle Arena, the former home of the Golden State Warriors, is a prime location for a WNBA team. Because since the Warriors have left Oracle and went to San Francisco to play at the Chase Center, the all-new Chase Center, beautiful facility, Oracle Arena has been a huge focal point for the WNBA, and especially for Elissa Cunane and her ownership group that are trying to get a new expansion team into place. That is, I think, the most likely place, or at least the first place we would see a new WNBA team, is in Oakland, California, which, again, up and down the bay, you have such an exciting sports scene going on. And if you add the WNBA, who, in terms of popularity right now, and in terms of growth of the league, we're seeing more people tune into the WNBA and women's basketball in general right now than we have in quite a long time. There is no better time than right now to start looking into adding a team, especially in the Bay Area. Toronto is another place that the WNBA could expand to. Basketball crazy city. Obviously, they have some passionate fans up there with the Toronto Raptors. Part owner of the Raptors is obviously Drake. Drake is on board with adding a WNBA team in Toronto, and I think that he would definitely play a huge part in Toronto getting a team in the W, because he is definitely a supporter of women's basketball. He's a supporter of, obviously, everything going up there in Toronto with the Raptors. So I do feel like Drake is going to be a big part of the scene there if the WNBA adds a team in Toronto. Nashville, of all places, is another team that is looking to expand. They want a NWSL team. Women's soccer is expanding just like the WNBA is. So Nashville is not only looking at WNBA, but NWSL as well, the National Women's Soccer League. And no pro basketball team is playing in Nashville right now. You obviously have the Memphis Grizzlies right on the edge of the state there, but in terms of Nashville, there is no pro basketball team. And the city is in support, again, of adding an NWSL team and a WNBA team, one or the other, or maybe even both. So those are some cities to look at, And Philadelphia is the last one that everyone's kind of looking at right now as a likely possible city to get a WNBA team. Natasha Cloud of the Washington Mystics has said in the past that the league is trying to get a team in Philadelphia. And I take her at her word. She's a player in the W. She hears what's going on, obviously is a big part of that. And if she says they're trying to get a team in Philly, I'm inclined to believe that. And I think that is another city that would definitely benefit from the WNBA, because obviously you have the Sixers there, very passionate fan base, really with all of the sports in Philly. And it's not easy to play in Philadelphia, again, whether it be the Eagles or the 76ers or whoever it might be, the Phillies. The fans are really passionate, they're really tough on the players, but they love their teams. They're passionate about their sports. And I think having a WNBA companion to the 76ers in Philly would definitely be a good thing for them. And the WNBPA, the Players Association, had a tweet about teams that and cities that they could expand to. And Toronto, Nashville, Bay Area, those were some cities that were mentioned in that tweet. Philadelphia wasn't mentioned, but that's a city in the past, again, that has been brought up. And again, by Mystics guard Natasha Cloud, among many others as well. So look at those 4 cities as maybe the prime targets and some of the better fits to get a WNBA team. Obviously, right now, Cathy Englebert, everyone at the top of the WNBA, they want to make sure that the economics are stable first, and then they're going to look into that. But they're already doing their research on cities and cities that would be good fits for the WNBA. And Shanae Ogwumike of the LA Sparks, their star forward, who is at the top of the Players Association and has a huge voice in this league, has suggested that a Wnba G-League come into place. Now, this could be another alternative to expanding the league or adding roster spots, because those are the 2 most likely fixes at this point. It would be adding a couple more teams or adding a couple more roster spots to the 12 teams that are currently in place. But she's suggesting a Wnba G-League, talking about the fact that no top draft picks should be cut from their team. And that's something that we've seen quite a bit of prior to this season, and we're going to get into that with some of the transactions. But she is suggesting that a developmental league come into place, like we have with the NBA. The NBA has 30 teams and about 15 roster spots, and that's not enough for everybody. A lot of the young players go into that farm system, just like minor league baseball. The Wnba G-League is there to give roster spots, give job opportunities to players that can't play at the highest level yet, the NBA. And the WNBA doesn't have that. But again, the league doesn't have enough financial stability right now to support a G-League. And they don't want to compromise their economic model. And they don't want to compromise their economic stability to just right away expand the league and add a team. Or just right away add a G-League. They have to be at a point where they feel like they can support it, because the league just doesn't have as much money as they would hope to do these things. So once they start getting that economic model in place, and once things are down pat, then you can look at that possibility of a G-League, league expansion, or roster expansion, any of those 3. And maybe down the line in the future, we'll see all of those things at one time. But it's going to be slow but sure. And again, we don't know which one it's going to be. Again, there's only 144 roster spots in this league, 12 on each of the 12 teams. And again, like I said at the top of this, most teams only carry 11, due to the fact that top players are getting bigger contracts than in the past, and it's harder for teams to make the salary cap work. For example, Kyla Charles, who was a key contributor on the Connecticut Sun, just got cut prior to this season because the salary cap just wouldn't allow her to remain on the roster. And she did get picked up by the New York Liberty, but again, whenever we see players cut and picked up, you don't know if they're going to stay there for long. We're going to talk about Crystal Dangerfield, who was cut by Minnesota, in just a moment. It's been a very interesting situation with her. And again, while players and coaches support that roster expansion, the commissioner wants league expansion. So we'll see how the Players Association and the league work in tandem to try to fix this solution. And now let's kind of get down to the issue at hand and some prime examples of it. Prior to the season, 2020 Rookie of the Year Crystal Dangerfield was cut by the Minnesota Lynx, along with Layshia Clarendon and 2022 draft picks Kayla Jones, who was picked 22nd overall, and Hannah Jervin, who was picked 28th overall. Those 4 players were cut. And again, Rookie of the Year Crystal Dangerfield, their top 2 draft picks, and Clarendon, who is a key veteran in this league. Those 4 were cut. Dangerfield was then picked up by the Indiana Fever, but then, just like right after one game, was waived by them and is now without a job right now. So that is clear case in point at the issue that we have. The Seattle Storm waived their top draft picks. Elissa Cunane from North Carolina State picked 17th overall. Evina Westbrook picked 21st overall. Since being waived by Seattle, Minnesota has picked up Westbrook on a hardship contract. The Las Vegas Aces cut their top draft picks, Mya Hollingshead, number 8 overall, and Khayla Pointer, number 13 overall. The Connecticut Sun, again, as I mentioned, cut Kyla Charles, picked up by New York. Since then, the LA Sparks cut Taya Cooper, very popular player on that team, 9.1 points per game in 2021. In any other league, this would not be the case. But, again, because of the lack of stability in this league financially, with the hard salary cap, with the limited amount of roster spots and only 12 teams, this is the case right now. In no other league would we see a player picked at number 8 like Hollingshead or number 13 like a Khayla Pointer, any draft pick, get cut from their team prior to the season. It's just that the veterans are in place and the young players just don't have a place to go right now. And that's why Shanae was talking about a G-League, a developmental league. I would definitely be in support of that. And again, maybe down the line in the future we see all of those things come together with the league expansion and expanding the rosters. But again, those are just some examples of how top players, even in this league, even like an Angel McCoughtry just got bought out by Minnesota. She's had injury issues, but even she's been bouncing around. And again, we too many times see players just go from one team, they're immediately picked up and then they're immediately cut. And especially for young players, for top draft picks, rookie players haven't even got their career started yet because of the fact that they don't have enough roster spots. They're drafted, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay. Even first-round draft picks, like Mya Hollingshead, was cut by her team. Number 8 overall pick. We unfortunately are having to see this too consistently in the WNBA. And again, it just comes down to trying to expand in some way. But I definitely think it's coming soon. I don't know about this offseason coming up. Maybe going into 2023, 2024, hopefully before then, we see at least some progress on the expansion front here. And a lot of players have to go overseas. The new CBA is not coming until 2027. So until then, the league needs to adjust some things. Another issue has been pay of players and the contracts. And while that has improved a little bit, it hasn't improved enough. Players are having to go overseas during the offseason to play, which shouldn't have to be the case. And that is not being talked about any more than right now because of the Brittany Griner situation, which we hope Brittany Griner can come back home safe soon. Obviously, that situation has been very, very tough. It's been very heartbreaking for players around the WNBA to see her over in Russia. She's not going to be back home for a while, and they got the court trial going on, etc. Obviously, that's a whole nother thing to go into. That's a whole nother podcast episode that we could do. But point is, the WNBA is expanding to the point now where I think we can see players get bigger contracts. Hopefully we can see expansion of the league with new teams, whether that be roster size, expanding, whether that be a G-League. There are a lot of ways to improve the situation, and there's no better time to expand the league than right now because of the growth and the popularity. And I don't think there's a time that we've needed expansion more in the WNBA than right now. So point of this podcast is just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we could see coming up with possible expansion. Again, on other podcast episodes coming up, we are going to have more talking about games, the WNBA season going on. 2022 regular season has begun. We've had some great games already. Lots of top players out on the floor giving great performances. And again, this is just our first episode on the WNBA. We're going to have more WNBA content coming up very soon here on this channel. For now, this is Hamilton Neal signing off, but I'll see you very soon. Thank you for watching.